And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, yeah.
All right, attention to roll call.
Good morning, everybody. How you doing? Live, 8:05, and it's Black Friday. I'm sure everybody's ready to get out there, spend their money. Listen, I just want to tell you, John, now that I'm out West Coast, I was like, you know what? I never go to the doctor, but my voice has been going all week. I've been feeling like crap. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get a doctor. But so I have GHI Emblem Health from the job. And then you find out when you leave New York, it's like nobody takes it. I don't even think people in New York even take it anymore. They barely want to pay. So I can't even find people to take it anymore. So then after we were talking, it hit me. I'm like, you know what? John said Teladoc saved his life. So I went on Teladoc, and dude, in 2 seconds, I got an appointment. I had medicine sent to the pharmacy. I couldn't pick it up. Everything was closed, but I'm picking it up today. I'm like, literally took 2 seconds. Copay was $10. So this is not an advertisement, but I got to tell you, Teladoc is the way to go. Unless, you really need like an IV or you need to actually be at the hospital, Teladoc is the way to go. Within seconds, you're in a waiting room, you got a doctor, and they prescribe you stuff. I mean, it's pretty crazy at the same time. You can tell them anything, and they'll prescribe it to you. But 2 seconds, brother. What do you think?
Yeah, but I mean, how often do you go to the doctor and not know what's wrong with you? You're like, I got a sore throat. I got pneumonia. I got the flu. Like, I don't ever go to the doctor and I'm asking him for I don't know what's going on with me. I mean, thankfully, I mean, I'm not saying that can't happen. When that happens, you have to go to the doctor when you really don't know what's going on. When you can't figure it out. But the earlier part of my life, my first 40 something years, I mean, I went to the doctor. I told him what I had. I got a cold. I got a flu. I need a Z-Pack. I need this. I need that. I didn't need to go sit there with the doctor, and that's kind of what happened during COVID. They shut down all the essential services. I went to the hospital. They wouldn't give me a Z-Pack. I called my doctor. He wouldn't give me a Z-Pack. I sat with pneumonia for 7 days. 7 days. I was on the couch dying. And I had just left the hospital. I had the discharge papers, wouldn't give me medicine. The doctor, actually, young kid, tried to say I had drug-seeking behavior. I'm like, dude, I'm asking for a Z-Pack. I couldn't even breathe or talk. I probably would have probably been my off-duty incident if I was feeling a little better, and the only one I would have ever had in my career. Because it was absolutely ridiculous how I was treated and what they did, knowing that I was an NYPD cop, knowing that I was. The guy told me I didn't have pneumonia, nothing. And I called Teladoc. I begged for a Z-Pack. The lady took mercy on me, gave me a Z-Pack, saved my life.
I think you're spot on. I mean,
did we lose you?
People know it, right? You get a symptom of one thing or another. You're like, I know exactly what I have. You know your body. You know how your body responds. I know my body. If I get something, I know if it's a quick bug. I mean, thank God I don't get sick often. I was for a while when I was overseas because there's just so much stuff going on there. But yeah, so listen, for me, somebody asked what I got prescribed. For me, when I get a cold, I usually get bronchitis. I barely can breathe, so I get an inhaler. That's what helps me. So I'm really not into medicine. I always try to fight things. I don't like medicine. I try not to take it, but sometimes you just got no choice. So Hassan says, you guys probably got sick from the Starlink, sharing Wi-Fi together. Yeah, it could be. But yeah, you're right. You pretty much know what you have, and Teladoc, dude, it's the way to go.
No, yeah. And I think, like I said, I think you're right. I think the diminishment of the healthcare, you see it firsthand. I seen it in New York City. I seen my own doctors in New York City telling me, oh, we're not taking this no more. We're not going to take this. I'm in Northeast Florida. I got to say the health coverage works pretty well here. But for traditional medicine, why do I want to go sit in a doctor's office? Unless you're worried about what the hell's going on. You have a sore throat, call the doctor. A sore throat, call Teladoc. I like Teladoc. I bought the stock. I actually down a lot of money in it. But I do think eventually I think it's a good practice. I think it's something that should work. And then they should, if you need to get a blood test or whatever, you could always go to these little pop-up urgent cares that they have everywhere. Shout out to Rob Lukic, $9.99. I got your copay covered. Rob, thank you. Hope you had a happy Thanksgiving, brother. Hope everybody on here had a great Thanksgiving. I'm sure we're all tired. I'm tired. I was up late last night. Yeah. I mean, let's get into it. There's a bunch of things. There's a bunch of things going on that happened. One of them I just seen. It's kind of weird. I don't know if you've seen this, Eric. There was a kid who shot at an NYPD cop, I believe, and he's a police commissioner's son, a Mount Vernon deputy police commissioner. No, he didn't shoot at the cops. He was shot by the NYPD. Did you see that article?
No, I never saw the article, but I heard about it. Somebody told me to take a look. So I never even got a chance. Did you?
Yeah. I didn't read it, but I just think it's a wild story, and I saw a bunch of people commenting on it. So this is from like a Westchester paper or something. So the NYPD said the 19-year-old son of the current Mount Vernon deputy police commissioner was shot by the police Friday after a gunfight and officer-involved altercation in the Bronx. NYPD said Chase Lacker, 19, was involved in a fight involving a gun near the Stevenson's Commons in the Soundview area of the Bronx around 3 p.m. Friday. Police said Lacker pointed a gun at NYPD officers when approached and was shot in the leg twice. He was transported to a nearby hospital. He remains in stable conditions. No police officers were injured in the altercation. Lackard is the son of Mount Vernon Deputy Police Commissioner Jennifer Lackard, who was appointed to the position in 2020. She formerly served on Bronx Community Board 9 and founded several organizations to assist the formerly incarcerated into reentry programs after they're released. The Journal News found that Lackard's husband, James, was arrested on drug charges in North Carolina in 2012 after he helped create a behavioral health program for formerly incarcerated back in 2007. Jennifer Lackard previously said she used her experience in her husband's arrest to help mentor the wives of incarcerated men. Her son Chase appeared to have multiple run-ins with law enforcement. He was shot in the chest at 17 years old in 2023 during a gang-related fight on an MTA bus in the same neighborhood and was arrested for additional gun charges 3 months ago in Manhattan, according to NYPD Chief of Patrol John Schell. Chase Lackard was arrested Saturday and was charged with second-degree use of a firearm and menacing a police officer. What do you think about that?
You know what's crazy to me? I was just talking about this with a buddy the other day. He's a contractor. It's like, you ever see a barber who goes out, does everybody's hair, but never has his hair done? You see a contractor, does beautiful work. His house is always in disarray. And when it comes to cops, right? Cops, we solve everyone's life. But then cops have like the most dysfunctional families. We see cops, and we've all seen it throughout our careers, who have the worst kids. I'm not blaming the commissioner, but it just shows. It's just crazy. It somehow it happens a lot in this profession where cops have some bad kids. I mean, it sounds like this kid's obviously involved in things. I mean, listen, when I was doing anti-crime out there running around in plain clothes, that was one of the key ways we would find guns. We would target, who's been a multiple target of, who's been a victim of multiple shootings, who's been a shooter several times, right? So usually, I mean, it's thank God when it comes to public safety that most people that are involved in shootings are involved in some type of gang violence. There is people that get shot, innocent bystanders, but if you're getting shot multiple times, usually it's gang activity. So I would do a lot of research on that, who's been shot multiple times, victims, and apparently he's definitely involved in some gang activity. There's no doubt about it. Hassan, brother, I want to just say shout out to you. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Black Friday. Thank you so much for being us almost every day, brother. Seriously. You've been off post a couple of times, but we get it. So thank you so much, man. He said, tons of respect to you guys and everyone's here. Thank you for all the laughs and fun. Stay safe. Hashtag EDM, hashtag RV. Your brother, no, thank you. Thank you so much. Respect to you in here and usually.
Uh-oh. Did we just lose EDM? I think we did. But anyway, Hassan, listen, you were late, so I'm going to give you a CD so that, nobody complains. It doesn't look bad. But yeah, and Tom, Juju makes love to Fauci science, $1.99. Appreciate you guys. We lost Eric. I'm sure he'll be back on in a minute. But I mean, when I looked at this, I saw a lot of people. Oh, we got your back. But so Eric, when I was looking at this, there was a lot of comments that she should step down. She shouldn't be the police commissioner. She shouldn't be the assistant police commissioner. I'm not gonna lie. When I'm looking at this, I'm saying there seems to be a pattern here, right? There seems to be a pattern. How are you rehabilitating people when you can't rehabilitate your family? How are you providing public safety when you can't provide public safety in your own home? And then I think about that and are there legal firearms? Did you notice things? Are there things going on in your home that you should be aware of? And I don't know, man. It really is a double-edged sword because you brought up a great point, and the point is that we're away from home a lot, and especially cops. Cops are away from home a lot. I grew up with a Chiefs kid, two brothers. Their father was a 3-star chief in the NYPD, and I don't know how they're doing now as grown men, but they were pieces of garbage. Complete pieces of garbage. And I used to always think, I didn't know any cops. I didn't know anybody that was a cop. So I used to always think, wow, their father must be a piece of shit. I always used to think that. And then I became a cop, and I met the father, and I'm like, wow, father's a great guy. Great guy. Loves the job. Great community member. Great cop. Great everything. And I'm like, how are his sons like that? How are his sons like that? And then I'm like, and then I thought about it, and I'm like, because he's never home. He was never home for them. His family was the NYPD. His family was not the kids that God gave him. His family was the NYPD.
Sorry, I just want to say I apologize for the glitch. I actually, on my Wi-Fi, picked up somebody else's Starlink. I don't know why, and it cut out on mine. So I had to switch it over. I apologize. Tom, I didn't get to read your comment. $1.99 to the podcast, coffee and donuts. Black Friday, brother. He says, Juju makes love to Fauci science. I love it, brother. But, like I said, for some reason, John, if you look at professions across the board, for some reason, when people are in that profession, that's where they completely fall apart. I mean, honestly, look at some of the barbers. Look at your own barber, right? They never have their beard done. They never have their hair done, but they do everybody else's hair. And I kind of equate that to policing also. I mean, we're out there refereeing. You're taking care of everyone else's family, but you never have an opportunity to take care of your own. And it's not that, people are a piece of garbages and they're not good parents. It's exactly that. You're not at home. And I think just sometimes, being a cop and being in this profession, you're so tired, right? You're constantly dealing with everyone else's problems. You're the solution for everyone else's problems. And to first come home, to have to start, being the problem solver at home, that's exhausting too. But at the same token, I'm going to say this also. And I don't know if this is the case. Mount Vernon, in particular, that city, the city government, the police, it has been plagued by corruption for years. So I'm just going to be devil's advocate. I don't know. I'm not saying that this commissioner is corrupt. We don't know anything about it. We haven't done any investigations. We haven't done any research. But Mount Vernon as a whole, it's the city government. If anybody is familiar with Westchester and their policing, has been plagued by corruption for years. So I don't know if it's tied into that. VSS Ventura's, shout out to you, brother. $5 on a podcast, coffee and donuts. It's many things. The different mindset of each new generation, thanks to our institutions and social media, don't help. Also, our scheduling is terrible. Absolutely. That's what John's talking about, not being home. Schedule is terrible.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I think you bring up another good point. It's that, we're not saying that it's right or wrong. And we're not saying we don't really know this chief. I'm not defending her, but I'm at the same time not saying that just based upon this information she should step down either. Because like I said, like when it relates to that 3-star chief in the NYPD, I know that he was a good cop. I know that his mission was to provide public safety to the people of New York City, but I know he had problems at home. And, I'm not saying it was because of I don't know what it was, but he had problems at home with his young boys and particularly boys. I mean, let's face it, at 17, you are a man. You're going to do your own way. And like, nobody's really going to be able to control you somewhat. So I'm not saying that she should step down. I'm not saying that she should stay in. Definitely should be looked at though, because let's just play devil's advocate right now. If this was a lower ranking member of the service, particularly in the NYPD, we know what charge they're getting, right? What's going to happen? You're going to get the charge of criminal association, and they're going to tell you, oh, more than likely they're going to say that it's your family. You can't pick your family, but there is going to be an investigation that ensues, right? There, you will have a black mark on your record for your family, even though you can't pick and choose your family. Rich Raj says, congrats on the 7K subs, John and Eric. Thank you. We appreciate everybody that's been subscribing, everybody that's been tuning in. You guys are great. Keeps us going. And honestly, we're just having fun. So whatever it is, if it's 7 people, if it's 7K people, we're having fun. Really doesn't matter,
Well, let's get the set. While we're at it, you know what? Let's get the 7 million with our friends and listeners. We're building this network together. So we feel that we all build together. We appreciate it. We can't do it without you. Thank you so much. But as John said, really, we don't care. We just enjoy it. We enjoy Juju, the trolls being here, the haters. Happy Thanksgiving, Juju. I hope the Thanksgiving Day parade brought you a lot of enjoyment. I hope that watching the podcast and doing the parade at the same time was entertaining. So, and you're welcome for all the tips that we've given you for policing Juju. You could donate some coffee and donuts also. You know what? Listen, with that being said, by the way, you must be talking about Scagnelli, right? You got to be talking about it.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
of course. So I agree. Listen, you can't blame them. But what we have to look into is there an appearance of impropriety? Has any nepotism or status helped this kid when he's committing crimes? Because she's the commissioner for Mount Vernon, has she had any contact with the DA's office to help him not get the appropriate charges? Is that why he's still out there running and gunning? So that's really something that has to be looked into. I would say most likely yes, right? I mean, we can't make the assumption, but I'm sure even if there's not a conversation, the fact that she is a commissioner, and I'm sure it's probably public knowledge, I'm sure that has helped him. So does it really help him? It helps him in the short term. But in the long term, it's not helping him. He's not getting the rehabilitation he needs, which is jail. He needs some time locked up to actually get an understanding of what he's doing to change his life around. So, I mean, I think this is a great topic to talk about. I mean, we have to give a fair assessment, right? We had the police officer, the state trooper, that was suspected of lying about his particular incident. Turns out that state trooper, his father, was part of a corrupt ring along with Michael Dowd in the police department. And you and I both said that he's not responsible for his father's actions, and that shouldn't hold him back to become a police officer. So I think the same standard, right? We talk about standards. Juju, you don't know too much about standards. The same standard should apply here. So, I mean, don't you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I think everybody should get a fair opportunity, proven innocent until proven guilty, and I think that applies for members of the service as well. I don't think we need to demonize people based upon the actions of their family. I do think it is of concern. It should be of concern. It should be a concern for the residents. It should be a concern for the members of the department. It is. It's not not just a black eye on this woman or her family. It's a black eye on her entire department. It's a black eye in policing, but it's something that really doesn't get talked about. I think we've done a horrible job, especially in the NYPD, of labeling criminal association, saying who cops should be around, how they should act off duty. We've seen the charge be used completely arbitrarily, and it doesn't make sense. So I have up on the screen here. This is for those of you older guys. It's no longer in the patrol guide. It's no longer under the discipline section in the patrol guide. This is now in the admin guide. Prohibited conduct 30406 in the admin guide. They moved a lot of stuff over to the admin guide recently. So this is as of 4/4/2022. This is criminal association, right? This is what you're prohibited from doing as a member of the service. This is how it used to read. It used to read, you cannot, in line 8, you cannot knowingly associate with any person or organization, and I'm going to go down to subsection C of 8, reasonably believed to be engaged in, likely to engage in, or to have engaged in criminal activities. Now, that is the most arbitrary statement I've ever heard in my life. So you, as a cop, you can never associate with someone you reasonably believe to be engaged in. So that does away with all of your CIs, all of the violence interventives, basically every person you've ever grown up with, including most members of your family. Because what's the book? 7 felonies a day. Every American unknowingly commits 7 felonies a day. There's so many laws on the books that in itself could be used so arbitrarily. So reasonably believed to be engaged in. Okay, I could see that one. You're like, okay, reasonably believe. You think that someone's engaged in criminal activities. How about likely to engage in, though? You're likely to engage. I don't know what that means. That is every American. To me, when you say who's likely to engage in a crime, we've seen everyone from police officers to priests to lawyers to doctors to the most trusted people commit crimes. Who's likely to engage in it? Every single person that walks this earth or has engaged in criminal activities. Many people have engaged in criminal activities. So basically, everyone in the NYPD, including the upper echelon of the NYPD, has been engaged in criminal association and is guilty of it. It's not even just like you're going to get the charge. You should have been charged with investigated for criminal association. No, you are guilty of this. You're guilty of it. Like, what do you think about the criminal association charge? How it's sat?
Definitely going to go into that. But before I go into that, I want to thank Joe Mango. Shout out to you. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Black Friday. Thank you so much for being an awesome friend to the podcast. Really dipping it to his pocket. I think we got a lot of coffee and donuts here. $100. I appreciate it. Get the biggest dozen. We're going to eat well today. For the Crumb series, can you guys just make sure to add Eric's "This Santa Claus character is full of shit" quote? LOL. Hey, Joe Mango, thank you so much. We really appreciate your generosity. Absolutely. We appreciate it. Definitely going to bring a lot of information to this Crumb series. There's a lot of content. We always say this administration might not be great for the people, but it sure is great for content. So we appreciate it. Listen, I think that everyone is likely to engage into a crime. Everyone. I mean, honestly, I'm likely to engage into a crime. You are. Okay, I'm going to give you a scenario here. Imagine you had a sick kid or a sick wife, a sick husband, and you couldn't get a particular medicine prescribed. Is it, and let's say that medicine's $50,000. Is it likely that, you know what, that person, your friend, might go commit a crime to get that money because it's for their kid or for their husband or for their wife? The answer is yes. So it's the stupidest, it's the dumbest, most vague, and I believe it was done by design when it comes to the patrol guide to have it written in that manner, in that particular verbiage, so that it could be weaponized to those that are in general population, and it could also be mitigated for those that have those great connections to nepotism. Because when it comes to Sal Greco, it was completely weaponized against him. But when it comes to Eric Adams, when he was doing security work for Mike Tyson, he got the axe of nepotism. He was handed a silver spoon. He got very lucky. So, again, we are all likely to engage to a crime. With the right scenario, in the right position in life, we're all likely to engage to a crime.
Yeah, so it's funny. So in 2022, this is how it's sat. In 2023, you guys all witnessed what happened, right? We had Sal Greco on the show multiple times. We went through his case. We labeled out how arbitrary criminal association is, and we labeled it out because we showed that the entire upper echelon hung out at some bar where there were plenty of people who have engaged in criminal activity, who are likely to engage in criminal activity, and who all of us could reasonably believe are involved currently in criminal activity. And so we labeled that. We showed you the absolute hypocrisy of that. We're like, how could you fire this kid for hanging out with a political consultant, Roger Stone? He's a political strategist. What Sal Greco's office, or holding the office of police officer, how he could benefit Roger Stone? He can't. There's nothing that he could do for Roger Stone, who, by the way, doesn't even live in New York City, travels to New York City sometimes. There's nothing that he could really do for Roger Stone that should be of concern for anybody. But yet the police commissioner, the chief of department, the chief of internal affairs, all these other people lower down the ranks, all hanging out with known criminals who, by the way, they sent to threaten and attempt to shut down this podcast. That's criminal association, right? That's clear as day. It's like, well, these people that are involved in potential murders, drugs, potentially sex trafficking, a ton of other numerous allegations that have been made against them. I would say that cops shouldn't hang out with those people. I think we could all agree on that. But you're going to go after a cop because you said the person he hangs out with lied in front of Congress. Yeah, I'm going to say that I'd rather cops not hang out with people who are involved in criminal activities, not a political strategist. And by the way, the crime that the person that you're saying the person did was pardoned. He had a full presidential pardon, so he's by definition not a criminal. Has a firearm license, has the right to vote. He's not a convicted felon. So the whole thing was completely made up. Oh, look who's on. Happy Thanksgiving, Big Sal. So here's Sal. He said this should be written in the administrative guide as the Sal Greco rule. You're 100% right. So we labeled it out. This should be called the Sal Greco rule. And I'm going to show you why. Because, like I said, this is how it was written. Knowingly, it's prohibited conduct to knowingly associate with any person or organization who's reasonably believed to be engaged in, likely to engage in, or have engaged in criminal activities. That's how it sat in 22. And then in 2023, we started brawling. In 2024, it continued. But on 12/8/2023, 12/28 of 2023, right before the new year, right at the height of all of this insanity that starts happening with this show, Sal Greco rule comes into play. And here's what the Sal Greco rule says. It says, excuse me. I'm losing my train of thought here. Let me pull this up in 1 second. I got the wrong thing up. But
yeah, definitely. While you pull that up, I have to say it's the most ridiculous rule that we have, because honestly, it really should be a case-by-case basis on what your relationship you have with someone could actually impact your ability to be a police officer that maintains integrity. I mean, we have the charge in the NYPD patrol guide referred to as the good order prejudicial to the department, right? So, which is pretty much a catch-all. So if we have that, why do we need this? Right? If you do something that is not in good order and is prejudicial to the department, then that could be the catch-all for a case-by-case basis. I don't even think we need this procedure. You could scratch this procedure altogether. It's the most ridiculous thing. I mean, if someone has a father that's in jail, you know, if your father's in jail for not paying his taxes, and you have to go get a letter signed off by a commanding officer within 7 days of the visit, that's ridiculous. You're going to see a father. I don't think you should have to mention that at all. That's ridiculous. It doesn't mean that you're going to go out and cheat on your taxes because you're visiting father. It should be, how does it impact your ability to be a police officer? How does it impact your ability to maintain integrity? How does it impact your ability to be a good representative of the patch, representation of the New York City Police Department? Because we have John Schell, Kaz Daughtry, and Tariq Shepard on social media embarrassing the police department. They have far embarrassed the police department, far worse than Sal Greco could ever do, because Sal Greco didn't embarrass the police department. He went out there as an exemplary police officer making arrests. His friendship with Roger Stone was a complete political hit job. If you like Roger or don't like Roger, that's not what's important here. What's important is, even if Roger Stone was never pardoned, how does that relationship have any ability to impact his relationship or his ability to maintain integrity doing policing? But since we go further, and Juju likes to troll here and say, LOL, his pardon was by Trump. Your boss that you talk about constantly, Eric Adams, post-indictment, Eric Adams is trying to get a pardon from Trump. So I'm sure if he gets convicted from this indictment and he's seen as a criminal and then gets pardoned, are you going to call him a criminal anymore? Or he got pardoned or not? Which one is it? It can't be good for one and not for the other. And that's the problem with the police department, is there's absolutely no standard. And the standard is this: nepotism and general population.
Yeah. So the Sal Greco rule comes into play. This is 100% Joe Mango. This is for the Crumb series. So date effective. I'm sorry, I couldn't read it on the screen. It was too small. But I have it up here on my phone. So what they did is, they kept it exactly the same. 12/28 of 2023. What happens? We start getting attacked. What do? We're like, you know what? Screw you. We're gonna go backwards, and we're gonna talk about all the things you've done and said to this podcast, and all the different ways you've wasted New York City taxpayer money, the millions of dollars you spent. And we dropped an internal affairs log on everything that was going on, including, guess what? We said that these people criminally associated. And not only did we say that they criminally associated, we gave irrefutable evidence that they were criminal associated. So what did the NYPD do? They implemented the Sal Greco rule. They changed the patrol guide. They changed the administrative guide. They changed the rules. The rules that they fired Sal Greco for. You want to hear what they changed it to? Sure. So it remains the same, line 8. Line 8 remains the same. They knowingly associate with any person or organization. Then you go down to C, and that person knows or has reason to know. Ooh, see, they changed it. Knows or has reason to know. Is engaged in or is unlikely to engage in criminal activity, or has previously engaged in criminal activities and or preventing or interfering with the performance of duty. So now they're saying, well, maybe you didn't know, but you should have known. Well, maybe the guy did. He is a criminal, and he's likely to engage in criminal activity. He has engaged in criminal activity, or you reasonably believe that we have reason to believe, right? But he's not interfering with the performance of your duty. So it's okay. Right? So that's what they do. That's the first step. Then they add in a note. They add in a complete note. Investigations into the allegations of criminal association shall take into account the totality of the circumstances. The following factors should be evaluated and considered. A, the type of crime, i.e., severity, violent nature, involvement of corruption or lack of integrity, enterprise, criminal activity, etc. B, current rehabilitation status of associated person. Examples: employment status, length of time since criminal activity, steps the person has taken to distance themselves from criminal activity, societal contributions, etc. That's great, because you know what? I know a lot of mobsters. They used to throw the best parties. They buy all the kids ice cream. They'd have everybody have dinner. They spend tons of money in the community. They give a ton of backpack giveaways, all this stuff. And they did that to give the appearance that they were just community businessmen, right? Still goes on today, by the way. C, relationship between the member of service and associated person. And D, frequency and nature of contact between the member of service and the associated person. So they put all that stuff in there, Eric. What do you think about that?
So I remember we went over this about a year ago. It's close to a year now. I remember we went over this. And right away I thought of it. I mentioned it on a prior podcast, and I'm going to mention it again. But when I was working the Lower East Side, we had this notorious drug dealer. And he was smart, man. He was savvy. He was only out during the day. Never touch anything. He was only out during the day. He would never be out at night. It was a really smart drug dealer, honestly. But, man, I almost felt bad. I mean, we were doing constant search warrants along with the FIO. We were doing SNU operations, right, for our outside agency, Street Narcotics Enforcement Unit operations, getting low-level drug dealers to get enough information and enough weight to target this drug dealer. Responsible for all the drugs that were moving in the Lower East Side, particularly in housing, the walled Reese houses. But I almost felt bad. I remember we were talking about it. We felt bad actually doing this investigation because it was like, do we arrest this guy for selling drugs? But at the same time, do we take him out of the community? Because he was smart. He was out there during the day. He would summon ice cream trucks for all the kids. He would buy them all ice cream. All the families there loved him. They knew what he was doing, but he was so good to the families and so good to the kids. He would give them money. I mean, you felt bad really getting this guy. He's hurting people at the same time because he's making his money, but he was smart on helping these families so that they were good to him, so that they wouldn't give him up. And he would summon buses. He would have kids go to the Great Adventure in New Jersey. And so, it was tough. So here's someone that was doing, a great contribution to society, while simultaneously he's a drug dealer. So this is so stupid. It's such a knee-jerk reaction to Sal Greco. This is their way of trying to combat a losing case, and they're going to lose. So when it comes to my brother Sal Greco, and I know you're here, brother, vindicate, reinstate, and compensate, and make him whole for the wrong that you did to him. And Ron Layson, you put it here. You said it right. This is what I was trying to mention. Let me see if I can find it again. Conduct prejudicial to the good order and discipline of the department. That's the catch-all. Is the fallback to we really don't have you on anything technically. Yes, that is the fallback, which is why do we even need this entire procedure? It's the most ridiculous thing.
Yeah. So I disagree with you, though. I don't think that this was to prove Sal Greco's case. I don't think they did this. I don't think they changed it to prove Sal Greco's case. They changed it to exonerate themselves. And they basically spell out exactly who they were hanging out with in here. And they try to distance themselves. Well, we did a criminal association because this person's been removed from crimes for a while. There's nothing documented. And they do great community contributions. But we don't really frequent with him a lot either. So, okay. So you basically exonerated Sal Greco in the attempt to exonerate yourself. But guess what? Sal Greco was always exonerated. You're still guilty. Because all the things you're doing is arbitrary. All of those things that you're trying to say is arbitrary. Fate in hand says, what if you had a friend that was arrested before you got on the job? Fate in hand, I'm going to give you one different. You move into a house. There's an 80-year-old man next door that lives next door to you. He got DWI'd when he was 16 years old. He stole a car, got DWI'd, whatever. He stole a piece of candy. Stole a piece of candy when he was 13. He was arrested and convicted of. Stole a piece of candy. He's 80 years old. You sit out on the stoop with him every now and then. You listen to old music, drink coffee, talk smack. Guess what? Criminal association. You're guilty. Right? That's how arbitrary that is. Right? Now they added in these other factors. I personally believe if we went through criminal association charges, there's going to be not just Sal Greco. There's going to be dozens of other officers who are going to have to be reinstated. The way that they just changed this exonerates basically almost every case they have had. You know, criminal association is being used arbitrarily. And the people that are, by the way, are violating this up top, they're hanging out with people that the police department has no business hanging out with. Zero business hanging out with. There is no reason you should be hanging out with a club owner where we're getting allegations of sex trafficking, drugs, murder, violent assaults, anything else. And I don't care if any of that happened or not. The mere fact that you're getting those allegations, you have no business showing up at that place. You have no business being around these people. You have no business hanging around celebrities who've been arrested. None of that. You push this rule down on the rank and file of the New York City Police Department, and you flout the entire rule. You do and act as you please. Oh, no, it's okay for me. Yeah, but it's a rapper. Yeah, but it's a movie star. It's like, okay. But what happens when one of your lower ranks does it? You fire them. That's what happens.
You said we disagree, but we actually don't. That was my point is they proved Sal Greco's case to combat their cases. Proving Sal Greco's case actually exonerates everybody. So we were actually saying the same thing. That was my point. Them actually delineating and actually putting out this specific information exonerates everyone for that purpose. And so we actually agree 100%. What I think this entire procedure should be thrown out. Honestly, it should just be common sense standards. This is the one that should fall in that stupid thing, which I was talking about, which Ron Layson corrected me and fixed it, which is the conduct that's prejudicial to the good order of the department. This should be the catch-all. Common sense would tell you if there's an active gang member that is involved in shootings and selling drugs or believed to be, am I going to hang out with that person as a cop? Absolutely not. If I have, in your scenario, if I'm living in a home and my next door neighbor is 80 years old, and when he was 20 years old, he was out running and gunning, committing crime. He actually shot people. And then he changed his life. He served his time, right? Because look, right now with the clean slate, after 8 years, you get a clean record. So that 80-year-old man, if he was out at 20 years old, he's a complete different person. He served his time and he found religion. And he's a complete different person. And you know what? It's not even the same person you're speaking to. That 80-year-old man is not even the same person 20 years old. It's the most ridiculous thing. That 80-year-old man might be far better than some other people. People do deserve second chances. And sometimes those second chances make them better. Sometimes the most humble people and the most successful people are the people that did wrong in their life because they learned from it. So this is the most ridiculous thing, of course, absolutely. But the police department doesn't have standards. Their standard is if they don't like you, if you're not part of nepotism and you're not a part of the circle, and if you're the target of an investigation, the bottom line is they will get you. And we've been saying it for years. They will get you, they will find you, and you will face the wrath. John, you know you were internal affairs. Everyone knows it. If you're a rank and file and you're part of an investigation, we always do, they're going to find something, right? There's an entire investigation to find out if you have any integrity, and then you're getting a command discipline for your memo book. Absolutely ridiculous and stupid. You get that command discipline on your memo book so that some captain or an executive, even higher rank, who's part of that investigation, is untouched and unscathed.
Yeah, I mean, we're all imperfect people, right? So if you and that's why the Stalin line, "Show me the man, I'll show you the crime," applies to anybody. If you're gonna just start targeting people, you could find somebody on anything and make them out to be a terrible person. And you're like, wait a minute, that guy that you're smearing is a much better person than you. Oh, that guy stole a piece of candy when he was 13. Oh my God, I can't believe it. It's like, yeah, well, guess what? You're laid up with prostitutes every night using drugs. So who the hell are you to judge that dude at 13 years old? A vet lays it out perfectly. They're supposed to investigate each relationship to determine if or how it would interfere with the interest of your duty. Exactly. And the evidence that we submitted showed that it interfered with their duty. Not only did it interfere with their duty, but they weaponized criminals to try to attempt to shut down our free speech. Not only did it interfere with their duty, but they used these people to try to shut down their critics, to try to shut down them from being exposed. So when we took it to the next step, Ethan Hunt brings it up here. He says, I'm a little slow. Sal Greco got fired for criminal association. Yes. And then they said that he lied, that they said that he was doing security for Roger Stone, and both him, well, actually, let me just slow up real quick. Sal said he never did security for Roger Stone. Guess how many times did the Internal Affairs Bureau interviewed Roger Stone or called him to see if Sal ever did security for him? Oh, let me answer for you. 0. So they accused him of doing security for Roger Stone. They illegally accessed all of Sal Greco's bank records, his phone records, everything. And guess how many transactions they found, financial transactions they found between Roger Stone and Sal Greco? I'll answer it for you. 0. So what'd they do? They said Sal was lying. He actually did do security for Roger Stone, but they never bothered to even pick up the phone and call Roger Stone and ask Roger Stone, hey, is Sal doing security for you? No, they never did that. So yes, so they fire Sal Greco for criminal association. Then the upper echelon sends criminals at us, and then we accuse them of also criminally associating, but actually criminal associating. And we give irrefutable evidence about nefarious people that they have no business hanging out with. And then guess what? What do? They change the patrol guide, right? And guess what? It doesn't matter because they're still guilty of it. They're still absolutely guilty of it. It doesn't matter. Even the rules that they put in place, they put it in to try to make it sound good, to try to weave more ways that it could be. No, try to put more distance between themselves and individuals. Doesn't matter because they just did this to make it sound reasonable. But at the end of the day, they still violated every single section of that.
I just want to say the comment that you read about Yvette, from Yvette. By the way, Yvette, shout out to you. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Black Friday. Thank you so much for being on us so often. Great friend, great listen to the podcast. But I think the comment by Yvette should actually be the actual verbiage in a patrol guide. That's actually perfect. It could be part of the conduct prejudicial to the good order department with that verbiage. It's very specific. How does this relationship, this friendship or association impact your ability to maintain integrity, to do your job? Yvette, shout out to you. That's spot on. I think that it's interesting that at the height of the attack on the First Amendment speech by John and myself and the finest Unfiltered family with this podcast, we would get attacks from a fake moniker known as All Cops Are Woke. And we know that's a member of the service. And everyone else that was actually utilizing their names, that is in the CRT unit, that is connected to the upper echelon of the police department, where this was actually ordered and directed from paid goons to attack this podcast, were associated with a fake moniker known as All Cops Are Woke. And All Cops Are Woke threatened our families. John, would you consider that criminal association? Because All Cops Are Woke was likely to engage in criminal activity because they were putting death threats to our family. So prior to this change, which is when it happened, that would have been criminal association. So am I wrong?
They actually engaged in criminal activity and they were associating with them.
Yeah, well, they actually engaged into it. Of course, the NYPD is refusing to take a report for aggravated harassment. They actually want – just listen to what's going on with Internal Affairs of the New York City Police Department. Internal Affairs has the identity of the fake moniker All Cops Are Woke that threatened John and myself, threatened our families, threatened our kids, was contacted me 3 days in a row at 3 o'clock in the morning with threats on my text messages and also through WhatsApp. And the police department knows it's a member of the service. This member of the service resigned from the job and will not release the identity and told us to go to Florida to make a report there. I mean, how ridiculous. Make a report in Florida when they already have the identity. So for the sheriffs in Florida to contact the NYPD that already has the identity of All Cops Are Woke, it's the most ridiculous thing. But that's how we've been stonewalled. That's what's going on with the Internal Affairs Bureau. That's why we are calling for an independent watchdog to be the new Internal Affairs Bureau for the NYPD, because clearly they can't police themselves. The job of the Internal Affairs Bureau has been completely exposed, and it's not to investigate, it's to protect the upper echelon. It's to protect those connected to nepotism.
Yeah, so that's what Ethan Hunt says, who I hang out with is nobody's business unless I'm doing something unlawful. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. And the other thing about this is charge is that, one, you're not allowed to, let's say if you're a woman police officer, and you meet some handsome bald guy and you're going to go out on a date with him. You're not allowed to run his name to see like if he's a criminal, if he's wanted, if he's ever been arrested. You're not allowed to ever do that. But now say this woman starts to date this guy and it turns out that all those things are true. Guess what she's guilty of? Criminal association. But how should she know that when she just met this dude on wherever? She just met him out at a bar. How's she really going to know? How's she really going to know? Oh, well, you were likely to know. You should have known. You had reason to believe. You should have had reason to believe. You should have known. So I think that's the other catch-all on this. It's like, well, we're not allowed to run people to find out. And so how could you hold me accountable for any of this? And listen, I agree. Listen, like Internal Affairs Bureau has failed when it comes to the upper echelon of the NYPD. They do not have the ability to properly investigate the upper echelon of the NYPD. We've laid that out time and time again on here. There is absolutely no way. I even told the investigator straight up, the kid that took the case. I said, there is no way for you to properly investigate this case. I'm not saying that you have the ability to. I'm not going to pretend that you have the ability to absolutely have anything done about this case. They have full access to your case, and they are going to guide your steps, whether you know it or not. So like independent watchdog, I want a truly independent watchdog, and I want people with actual investigative experience, not the CCRB. Because this article comes out yesterday. A Bronx man, once convicted of a triple murder, passed over by NYU for a security job. Who does he land a gig with? NYPD watchdog. A Bronx man convicted of a 1972 triple murder, who sued NYU for passing him over as campus security guard, has landed a gig with the NYPD's internal watchdog, the Post has learned. Ronald Davidson is training to be an investigator with the city's Civilian Complaint Review Board, which looks into claims of police misconduct. A move that has riled police unions, even as the candidate said he long ago turned his life around. He was convicted of 3 homicides, so he should be disqualified from doing any investigations involving the NYPD and its members. Vincent J. Vallalong, head of the NYPD Sergeant Benevolent Association. I didn't even know. The sergeant had a union? Wow, I didn't even know that. I mean, is that guy? I think that guy lives in Florida. I don't even think he's a New York resident. But whatever. He should not have access to sensitive material involving victims, he continued, noting Davidson was scheduled to be a second seat in a case against the sergeant last week until the union protested. Davidson was just 17 years old when he killed 3 people after the trio who tried to rob him at knife point on August night in New York City Beach, according to a New York City 2016 letter he penned to the patrol board. The combination of anabolic steroids, the flowing of adrenaline, and the fear of my life was in danger and that I was going to get killed or at very least seriously injured by these 3 men led me to the worst decision action in my life, to shoot these 3 men multiple times, thus ending their lives, he wrote. He said the crimes have haunted him since. They've also allegedly torpedoed his job prospects, such as when New York University revoked a security officer position after a background check turned up his earlier conviction. The school's student newspaper, the Washington Square, wrote in December 22, police union officials said they're ready to push back. We will protest every time he's scheduled to sit with one of our case of our members, Vallalong said. If CCRB wants to hire him, they should do it for another position. Patrick Hendry, the head of the PBA, echoed in comments. Police officers should not be subjected to the judgment of someone who is convicted of 3 murders, Hendry said. Moreover, the NYPD should not be turning over massive amounts of sensitive law enforcement information to someone who has this kind of criminal record. If this individual has any role in CCRB investigation, it not only jeopardizes our members' rights, it puts public safety at risk. It's up to the NYPD to ensure that doesn't happen. Sources say Davidson is physically present in CCRB offices and shadowing investigators, but has not had contact with NYPD members. The CCRB, for its part, declined to comment on Davidson's case. The agency hired a new class of investigators as per New York State and New York City human rights law. The CCRB does not discriminate in the hiring process based off prior criminal history, an agency spokesperson said in an email. It's unclear why Davidson, now in his late 60s, wants a security or law enforcement related job. The Post was unable to reach him for comment. Davidson sued NYU in 2022 after the school revoked his security position and produced a bevy of letters and documentation to support his claim that the 43 years of prison had rehabilitated him. One letter called him a role model in the community. The other said Davidson is diligent, committed, and exhibits strong work ethic. Before we go any further on this, what are your thoughts about this?
So we don't know the entirety of this case, right? We don't know the entirety. We don't know the context. If this was some type of quasi self-defense situation, I mean, I think it's pretty crazy to take the lives of three, but we don't know the story, right? He's saying that three men were trying to attack him. He was scared. Why he was armed at the time. We don't know these things, but it does correlate to what we're talking about right now when it comes to criminal association. So prior to this new procedure of December 28th of 2023 that Sal Greco's life was based on, and Sal Greco was wrongfully terminated and lost his career because of criminal association. Well, that would then apply to this particular person of interest, this subject here. This subject here committed a violent crime. We could never associate with that person ever, according to the way the patrol guide was before. He could be that 80-year-old man living next to you that you can't have a conversation with, you can't associate with because of the criminal activity, and likely to engage into it again, according to what the patrol guide is, because it's very vague and done by design when it comes to that. But now if we look at it December 28, 2023, the change, right, to combat the Sal Greco case and to exonerate the police department themselves, their strategic move to the Sal Greco case, it then opens that door for distancing himself from that crime. It opens that door for how long it's been since that actual crime. What is the likelihood of committing that crime again? So obviously 43 years. He's obviously a different person at this point. But should he be working for the Civilian Complaint Review Board? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, we talk about it all the time. I was coined as the most complaint cop. My career, my ability to do policing was actually deteriorated, and based on people that have low information when it comes to policing, people that have a bias and disdain and prejudice towards policing. That's where my life and my career was dependent upon for the CCRB. And the target and the hit job that I got from the CCRB led to the demise of my career. And I made the decision to leave because I could no longer do what I was paid and trained to do. Now I left. I just want to clear the air. Some of the trolls said I was fired or forced out. No, I took it upon myself and I retired. I could have stayed. I was offered intelligence. I was offered the squad to stay indoors, but I chose not to. And this is the path right now, is being the squeaky wheel that gets the oil. But he should not be working for the Civilian Complaint Review Board. It just shows it's compromised of people that do not have the ability to make a proper assessment on police. We're giving people a second chance, but the CCRB doesn't want to give police officers a second chance. We want to give people a clean slate, but yet we're not going to give police officers a clean slate. Again, the metric system and the standard against police officers is absolutely insane. How a police officer can never make a mistake and come back from that. If you have a substantiated civilian complaint when you're 21 years old, or even just an allegation 20 years later into your career, I would say you're also a different person, just as we could say with this particular subject. And yet, you're not treated as a different person, because that will be on your 50A forever.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the other thing is, if you cannot be a police officer in New York State or New York City based upon your criminal record, why should you be able to investigate them? Shouldn't we hold the same standard? shouldn't the same standard apply? If we're going to be on a same even playing field, an even keel, and I think that's what the unions are missing here the most. It's like, wait a minute. This person doesn't qualify to be a police officer. Time out. They don't qualify to be a police officer. Why? Because there are integrity concerns. There are concerns around public safety. There are concerns around confidentiality. So if they don't qualify to be a police officer, the city of New York qualifies them to investigate police officers. Shouldn't I be a higher standard or at least the same standard? Shouldn't that be the case? Shouldn't that be the catch-all? And, I'm going to tell you right now, I think this person's going to get, I think that the person's hired. I think that this person is going to be investigating NYPD police officers in the very near future. And I think Vincent Vallalong and I think Patrick Henry aren't going to do a damn thing about it. That's what I think.
You know what I think, John? I think it's actually great. I'll tell you why. It's ironic. We talk about things that are great on this podcast that really don't make any sense, right? Eric Adams is a terrible mayor, but he's great for this podcast. And I can tell you what, it's actually great for the rank and file. And if I was the union, I would say, you know what? Yes, we want him to be the investigator on use of force cases because he shot 3 people and killed them because he was scared. And when our police officers are in situations where they use force, they're scared too. So we want the same standard applied. He was able to get a second chance. We want our police officers to get a second chance. So I want him to do the investigations. So wait, you're telling me you deployed a strike because you saw your adversary posture and grind their teeth and you thought they were going to punch you in your face, and that's why you deployed a strike? Oh, I was scared too. I actually shot and killed 3 people because I was scared. So you know what? I want him to do those use of force cases, and I want the union to sit in and say, you know what? When you ask my police officers how they feel, remember how you felt when you took the lives of 3 people. Sleepy Joe, shout out to you. $10.12 in the podcast. Coffee and donuts, we appreciate it. He said, glad to see you feeling better, Eric. I'm feeling better, definitely. Still hurting, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Will Pat keep his 3 hairs in 2025? We hope for New Year's he gets himself a resolution, either going bald or getting some hair. Maybe he could go Dominican Republic, get a hair transplant. How many courtrooms will he pack? And that's the only answer. They'll pack courtrooms. There's no solution. But, John, do you understand what I'm saying? I'm kind of being facetious here. But if this particular investigator, if he becomes an investigator, which he will, is going to make assessment on use of force cases, how could he? He took the lives of 3 people because he was scared. How about a police officer when they're in a situation where they may be attacked?
Listen, at the end of the day, people change. I believe in rehabilitations. I believe in second chances. I have no problem with the guy seeking employment. He served his time. He admitted his crimes. I have no issue with the man whatsoever. But I have an issue with the fact you cannot be a police officer. That is the law. That is the standards. So then you shouldn't be in a position to investigate them either. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I don't know what happened that night. It doesn't matter to me what happened that night. He acknowledges a crime. He served his time for the crime. But that still doesn't mean that he's going to be a police officer. So he shouldn't be in a position to investigate police officers either. I'm not saying that he should sit on the street and starve and never have a crime again. And by the way, I feel the same way about Michael Dowd. You know what I mean? I know everyone on here hates Michael Dowd. And I've made my comments about Michael Dowd. I think what he did was horrendous, but he served his time. I think it's time to move on. You know what I mean? Does that mean that Michael Dowd should be able to work for CCRB? No, he can't work for the New York City Police Department either. So but do I wish him bad? No, he served his time. He admits his crimes. He should be able to move on with his life. And I feel the same way with this guy too. But there are certain jobs that you just can't do anymore. That I didn't make the rules, but those are the rules. And if we're gonna hold by those rules, then I agree with. And by the way, I kind of agree with them because we all have our own biases, right? We all have our biases. I think you're gonna be a little biased against authority, law, cops, when you've been arrested before, when you've served time in jail. Now, does that mean everybody? No, I'm sure there's some people that fully are like, they could make proper assessment later on in life. But I just don't think it's often the case. So I think that I just think it's nonsense. I think it's complete nonsense. And like I said, I don't think the unions are going to do anything about it other than give that quote in the paper and talk about packing courtrooms. I don't really think they're going to do a damn thing about it.
The unions are going to do nothing. At best, what they'll do is they'll get the verbiage from John and myself from watching this podcast and comments from our friends and listeners when we build this network together and being a force from outside to actually help within. So that's what they'll do. They'll take the verbiage that we use, but that's as far as it goes. They will say things, but they'll never take any action. Again, so that opens the door. And the question is, what are the qualifications? What is the criteria to be a civilian complaint review board investigator? And that really does raise the question, should the same qualifications to become a New York City police officer apply to become a civilian complaint investigator? And the answer to that question, I think, is yes. Because in order to make an assessment on someone, you should be able to set the standard. So if I'm going to make an assessment on a police officer, I should be able to fit that role if I'm going to set the standard and make an assumption, observations, and do a full-out, thorough, and fair investigation without any biases. So absolutely, I agree 100%. But again, it just shows the bias, the prejudice, the compromised integrity of the Civilian Complaint Review Board, because the people that there investigate police officers are not giving a fair shake. And we've heard it. We've heard Arva Rice, the former acting chair. We've heard her speak at numerous hearings with the New York City Council, where she's testified that it's not based on the totality of circumstances. It's only the emotions felt by the actual complainant. So it's completely one-sided, and we heard it publicly.
So this was an interesting article. This is insane, by the way. This is like this. I'm like, are we just gonna keep allowing this to happen where we're just watching things that make absolutely no sense, but they cost us hundreds of millions of dollars and people get rich off of it? People that donate to certain politicians, people that are friendly with certain people in positions that are appointed. So this article comes out by Haley Brown in the New York Post. MTA mulling using drones to track New York City buses, sparking outrage from union. Suspicious. The MTA is considering using aerial drones to track its 6,000 bus fleet, sparking outcry from transit union leaders who call the plan fishy, spending-wise. The agency's department buses issued a document requesting information from vendors by December 18th, outlining how drones could be used to create a real-time map of bus locations and vehicle patterns along service routes. DOB wishes to address the challenges of maintaining accurate and up-to-date vehicle location tracking for both its buses parked with depot buildings and outside uncovered building parking lots, reads the document. Union leaders argue that the drones would be ineffective compared to the service dispatchers who currently monitor the bus lines, keep track of the vehicles in the yards, make sure all of them are safe and public service. How do you accomplish something like that with a drone? What do drones know? Mike Karubi, president of the Subway Service Supervisors Association, which represents more than 3,000 transit workers, told the Post. A drone sees a bus running down a line, and what is the drone doing? It does nothing. That supervisor out in the field is what moves the system, which moves the public from point A to point B, not a drone, Karubi said. Phil Valenti, president of the Transit Supervisors Organization, Transport Workers Union, Local 106, which represents around 700 bus dispatchers, called the MTA plan suspicious. To me, they're suspicious because they get into these multi-year, multi-million-dollar contracts with these vendors, and they don't work out, Valenti told the Post. The MTA already uses a program called Yard Tracker to keep tabs on the bus and its fleet. And Valenti says it has failed to accurately monitor vehicles parked inside of the 28 bus depots. Every time they embark on a new piece of technology, it never works. It's a disaster, Valenti charged. He said the MTA should be investigated for spending waste. To me, there should be internal investigation to find out why they spend all this money on these type of programs and they're never working out for them. To me, something fishy is going on. Some ulterior motive, Valenti suggested. Karubi agreed. Said the MTA's move to drones could risk another expensive misstep, further contributing to the transportation agency's reputation for mismanaging funds. That is something that goes on continuously, and they just continue to waste money, Karubi said. Yet the MTA cries they are broke. They need more money. They need more money, he said. And you know what's going to happen with congestion pricing? When they get all that money, nothing's going to change. Subway's still going to be the subway. He added, referring to the controversial plan to charge drivers $9 to enter Midtown in order to fund MTA's capital improvement projects. The document released by the MTA does not specify a cost for the potential drone program. Spokesperson for the MTA said the program could potentially actually result in cost savings for the city. Spending money is going to save you money. Got it. New York City Transit is researching saving opportunities related to fleet management, and there are zero new costs associated with that review, the statement said. That's a damn lie, because you're wasting our money funding these damn studies and paying people with high salaries and little brain power to work on things that just don't work. What do you think about this, Eric?
First of all, shout out to Rich Raj, brother. Always dip his hand in his pocket, but I want to say thank you for your service. Rich Raj said he did MTA for 28 years, driving buses in Staten Island. So shout out to you, Rich Raj. I don't think they get enough credit and enough. We don't honor MTA enough. MTA workers, bus drivers, transit, anyone that keeps the system moving. Shout out to you, Rich Raj. So I'll say this. I think this is completely insane. And, we're talking about money being wasted, but we're starting to push the needle when we talk about potentially removing civil liberties. And this is the problem. I think that this is going to start embarking on people's freedom. So imagine John, you know it. We talked about this recently. When you're out sick in the police department, because we're talking about drones. When you're out sick in the police department, you're supposed to be confined to your home during work hours while you're sick. And if you have to go to the doctor for some reason, like a little kid, you got to call the sick division and get permission to actually go to the doctor. What if they say, you know what, John, you're out sick? All right, you have from 8 to 8:15 to get to the doctor, and we want to make sure you get to the doctor. So let us know when you're leaving your house, because we're going to deploy the drone to follow you and make sure that you get to the doctor. And then when you're done at the doctor, let us know, because we're going to deploy the drone to make sure that you go home. This is getting scary, pushing the needle, we're pushing the envelope, and we have to stop this now. This is absolutely, if we allow this type of intrusion, we're going to start intruding on our civil liberties. What are your thoughts?
I don't even think they could think far enough to even see how to utilize the drones properly. They're not even giving you a valid reason on why they want to spend this money, why they're wasting money challenging this. I mean, I could present this idea to a 5-year-old and they're going to say it's dumb. And then the reason they're going to say it's dumb is because you want to be able to track buses? Okay. There's a technology they currently use to track buses. It's called GPS. It's the same technology that the NYPD uses to track cars in real time. All the NYPD fleet. The entire NYPD fleet is tracked in real time. We know what every car is. We know how it works. If the GPS goes down for whatever reason, that car is automatically put out of service right to Fleet Services Division, where they'll put that GPS back online. Same happens in the MTA. This is 100% what the union leaders are saying is exactly what's going on with every contract that's happening in New York City. Every contract related to the NYPD, this is what's going on. What they're saying, they're overinflating they're overinflating the capability of technology, and it never works. It never works as promised. The technology is completely always overinflated. And the reason that they're saying they're using it, like, oh, we're using it to save lives on subways. We're using it to save lives for subway surfers. Like, no, you're using it to create content for subway surfing. You're not saving lives. You might be taking people down, but that technology in itself has not saved one life, and is actually way less effective than just putting cameras on the roofs of the train as they drive. We don't have that technology. Of course we do. And it's much cheaper than that. It's much more effective because you could monitor the train from point A to point B without having to use manpower. Right? This whole thing makes absolutely no sense. And no one's saying, wait a minute, time out. You want to track buses that are already tracked? You want to track buses with a technology that doesn't even work as well as the technology you currently have. Oh, and then you need a fleet of drone operators. Oh, okay. And then you need a fleet of drone operators, and you need to purchase all these parts and all of these service contracts, and all of these other millions are going to have to go to track buses that we already track in real time. This makes absolutely no sense. Forget an independent investigation. This needs to be an outside investigation. There is something seriously wrong. Anyone who says that this is a good idea should be investigated.
Spot on, brother. Spot on. Just like John said, I want to reflect on that and piggyback on that. When we talk about the money aspect, I was talking about civil liberties aspect, because we're really pushing the envelope and the needle when it comes to technology and AI. And I do believe that this stuff is part of economics, but I do believe also they push the needle to see how far we could go into this police state. But as far as economics, to me, the appearance of private contracts and someone benefiting behind closed doors is there, because the technology we have there is GPS. Why do we need drones flying around additional? It appears to be redundant, and it's ineffective, not as effective as the system that you already have in place, and causing more money. And we're going to need repairs. We're going to need manpower to actually man these drones. It seems completely idiotic, and it seems that we're spending $1 to make a quarter. So it doesn't make any sense. But shout out to Driver's Seat. I think this is hysterical. He says, how about ankle monitoring bracelets when cops are out sick? Yeah, absolutely. That's what's coming. It's coming to a police state. They want to be able to have full and ultimate control. And drones, the technology, is not about saving lives or saving money. It's about a police state and having total control. Just as we spoke about with the subway service, I said they're not saving lives. It shouldn't be called, the first responder program. It should be called reporting deaths. That's exactly what they're doing. They're actually reporting and recording deaths. It's the same thing with the MTA, the death of the MTA. The MTA is always a money pit, constantly congestion pricing, the tolls that we have on some of these bridges that go to MTA. What we really need is a full-out investigation to find out how the MTA actually allocates and spends money, because clearly the comptroller is not doing it. And we're talking about the comptroller, because the MTA is a major failure. And it's not on the city level. The MTA is a state agency, and they do a terrible job of spending money, and more money just keeps getting pulled into the MTA, and still it's a money pit. We need a full-out investigation to figure out how the money gets allocated and where this money goes.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that the technology is scary when you look at it, but I don't think the people that are implementing the technology are under the impression that they're going to bring down totalitarian control. I think what they're worried about is funding their own bank accounts. I think they're worried about the stock that they bought in these companies. I think that it has absolutely nothing to do with them trying to bring in a totalitarian government. That's eventually, technology, if we're not careful with it, could replace the human element. I think we have to start. I think we're there where we need to start pushing back and dictating how many humans need to work in a certain field versus robots, all of that stuff. Because it's there. We're there. I think we're few years away from having robots in our house doing housework for us, cleaning, doing dishes, possibly driving us around in our vehicles. We're right there. So we need to start hone in on, all right, what are we going to allow technology to do and not? But the people that are in place currently in these cities that are implementing this technology, these are not forward-thinking people. They're not thinking 5 minutes ahead. They're thinking stock. They're thinking my pocket. They're thinking me. I. I think that when we look at that, it's something that we have to start looking at. Here's another piece of technology. We all remember the Evolv scanners, right? The Evolv scanners, for those of you that are not familiar, New York City Mayor, NYPD Daughtry, NYPD then Chief of Transit Michael Kemper, Chief of Patrol John Schell, Jeffrey Madry, they all go down to the subway station. They say, this is the future. This is our Sputnik moment. This is our Sputnik moment. And they put scanners, gun detection scanners, down in New York subways. So let's see how that worked out. Oh, I remember, but I'll just read you about it. The Federal Trade Commission has issued a press release titled FTC takes action against Evolv Technologies for deceiving users about its AI-powered security screening systems. Evolv's gun detection scanners were recently tested in New York subways. And even though the company's CEO admitted that the technology was not geared towards the subway station, subways in particular are not a place that we think is a good use case for us. In spite of this, New York City Mayor Eric Adams announced that Evolv's gun detection scanners would be tested in New York City's subway station. This is a Sputnik moment, Adams added. At the end of the test, the NYPD said in a brief statement that in 30 days, across 20 subway stations, that the Evolv pilot recovered 12 knives. It was also reported that out of 2,749 total scans, there was 118 false positives and 0 guns were recovered. Before I even go any further on that, I just want to say that is definitely not an accurate amount of scans. 20 subway stations for over a month, that is not accurate. They were not properly counting even the amount. There were way more people that was scanned than that. But whatever. We'll take it on its face value. I don't buy it. I say it's way more. Whatever. Recently, it was reported by Chris Sommerfeld of the Daily News that the federal investigators seek records from Evolv firm behind New York City subway weapon scanners. Below is an excerpt from the FTC press release. In the proposed FTC settlement order, Evolv would be banned from making unsupported claims about its products' ability to detect weapons by using AI that would also have to give certain K-12 school customers the options to cancel their contract, which generally lock customers into multi-year deals. I CC'd the mayor and Daughtry on this. I don't think they like this too much, but this is, I didn't write it. This is the FTCC. This is what they put out.
Listen, the bottom line is the MTA has been a major failure. The NYPD's private contracts are on the same path, been a major failure. And the question is who benefits from the private contracts. And we called it before we learned any information about the technology, about the Evolv scanners, before we even did any investigative work, before we did any research in the background of this. Both John and I said this is absolutely ridiculous. This is not going to work. It's completely ineffective. Even if this was advanced technology and the technology actually identified weapons, that the strategic placement of these scanners would not be effective to intrusive police work. And if you're an actual perpetrator in possession of a legal firearm, that you're not going to bypass these subway stations, and you're not going to utilize these subway stations anyway. It was just complete mishmash, total nonsense, hogwash. Who is it? Rob Nappy says here, John, which he's right. He said, John, you know when the Verrazano Bridge opened on November of 1964, it was 25 cents. Wow. It was supposed to be free November 1st, 1970. I'm sorry, January 1st, 1970. True info, incredible. MTA, a disgrace and fraud. MTA is disgrace and fraud, and so is the NYPD. The NYPD is advocated for the robot. That was a failure. Evolv scanners, that's a failure. And you know what? Look, Michael Kepper, shout out to you. He does have a great sense of humor. He's the only one that has a sense of humor when it comes to this podcast. But Michael Kepper, you are the chief of transit, and you're also now, in charge of security for the MTA. What's going on there right now? What's going on? Because the subway's a mess. What are you doing? You have all the inside silver linings of the police department and your experience with MTA and coordinating. You should be making things better in the subway. And we don't see a change. Nothing. Zero. If anything's getting worse.
Yeah. And so Evolv can't make these claims anymore, but the mayor in New York City and his appointed managers can make these claims to the public. So I think, what we're seeing is it's what the MTA unions were saying about the MTA. Take that across all of New York City. They're 100% right. They just keep blocking themselves into these multi-year, multi-million-dollar deals, and the technology fails over and over and over and over again. Listen, nobody's perfect. You're going to make mistakes, right? You're in the game. You're in the arena. You're going to make mistakes. But these don't look like mistakes. These look like I'm concerned on one thing only, the success of these contracts. And then we have to ask why. Why is that? Why are we worried about the success of these pilot programs and these contracts? It feels like we have a desired outcome. Why? Why when the things don't work? What is that reason? And to me, that looks like you're worried about money. You're worried about money. You're worried about your own personal gain. You're worried about yourself. You're worried about your bank account. That's what I see. And we continue to see it over and over and over again. Ethan Hunt, a little bit off topic, but Ethan Hunt says passing an exam should no longer be a prerequisite for being in leadership. I wholeheartedly, 1,000% disagree with you. I wholeheartedly disagree with you, Ethan. Does passing an exam mean that you're going to be a good sergeant? No. Does it mean you're a good leader? No. Does it mean you're smart? No. Doesn't mean any of those things. Doesn't mean any of those things. But you know what it does mean? It means that you put in the work necessary to pass that exam. You studied that book. You learned those procedures. You put yourself into a system, into a work ethic in order to be able to pass an exam and move further in your career. You learned about your career. Right? And what does it do? What does that test do? It gives you an equal opportunity to get promoted. Because I'll tell you right now, if it wasn't for the exam, I never get promoted. I don't know anybody on this job. I didn't come on the job knowing anyone. No one in my family was ever a cop. None of my neighbors were ever cops. Nobody. It was the only person I ever knew that was a cop, me, until I became a cop. Right? So I never get promoted. I got sent everywhere I ever got sent. I got sent because I got sent there. Had nothing to do with anyone ever making a phone call for me or anything like that. When I got on the job, did I meet people? Did people like me because of my work ethic? Absolutely. That happened, and that's what happens traditionally, right? You're going to find bosses that are going to say, okay, this kid's effective. He's smart. He's competent. I want him to come with me here. I want him to come with me there. Yeah, that happened. But I would have never gotten promoted to sergeant. And again, I think me personally, I should have been promoted to detective at the 5-year mark without question. Without question, I solved pattern after pattern after pattern. I would have never got promoted to detective. Maybe 15, 16 years down the road, maybe I would have got promoted to a 3rd grade detective. But I would have never made detective doing the work I was doing based out of the precinct that I was sent to. It would never happen. It would have never happened. So the test is the great equalizer. It's the great equalizer. Without that test, the person who gets promoted is the person who's closest to the king, is the person who's more politically connected than you. And we see how that's playing out currently in the New York City Police Department. So I'm not saying that we need to get rid of the test. I'm actually going to double down. I'm going to say we need more tests. We need more tests.
So I like the test for one reason. And the reason why I like the test is because it alleviates potential nepotism affecting the ability to get promoted, which is what we see what's going on right now. We see promotions by Rocket Fuel, Kaz Daughtry, Tariq Shepard. We see these promotions that have been done by Rocket Fuel. And so what the test does, it does alleviate nepotism. Now, I think in order to be an effective leader, that's where it comes to training. I think you should have to pass the test, but I think it's not enough. It should not just be an academic test, because being a good leader, you have to have stamina. And what is stamina? It's having mental fortitude, but it's also the physical fortitude. So I think you should have to pass a written exam, but you should also have to pass a physical fitness test. I'm not saying you have to be a pure specimen, but there should be a standard. You should have to pass a physical fitness test to get promoted. How are you going to tell some young rookie cop that, hey, you have to go walk up those 5 flights of stairs to get to that job because the elevator's out when you can't do it yourself? Right? You may have to go to that job at all. If you don't have the stamina to lead, you should not be in that position. So I think the physical requirements are just as important as the mental requirements. And I learned that in the Marine Corps. I know right away you're going to see the hashtags for the Marine Corps, but absolutely. I was on the ground at Officer Candidate School. And they said it was so important to be in physical shape as is mental. How can I lead others if I can't even lead them physically? So it applied at officer school. When we actually went on runs, you had to be able to run faster than everyone else. So the physical requirements at officer candidate school were even harder than boot camp because you have to lead. So if they were running 3 miles in 18 minutes, I had to do 3 miles in 17 minutes. So you had to be the fastest ones. You had to lead the charge. Now, when it comes to actually getting promoted, I think we need better training. These seminars are they're inadequate. We need to go away to West Point or somewhere where you can actually get leadership training to become a leader, because it's not necessarily a born skill. For some, they're outliers, but leadership is a skill that you learn through training. We need to teach them how to be leaders. But I do think tests are the best way to actually just get rid of all that nepotism. I mean, honestly, it was disgusting. Becoming a young sergeant, staying in shape, and you see some of these people who can barely make it up a flight of stairs. They were one cheeseburger away from having a heart attack. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. How is that person going to tell me, you know what? Because it happened in Hurricane Sandy. We were working during the blackout in the Lower East Side for 3 weeks, and we had to bring water. It was the most ridiculous thing, talking about housing with the chiefs there. Instead of having a centralized location where people could come grab water, and then we'll bring water to people maybe if they're on dialysis or disabled, fine. They made the cops carry water and blankets 20-something flights upstairs in the Smith houses in the Lower East Side. And meanwhile, many of these supervisors, they couldn't even make it up 2 flights of stairs. I forgot there was one. Oh, it's Inspector Johnson at the time. She looked like a PAA. First of all, she couldn't even make it up half a flight of stairs. And she's telling these guys to go to 21st floor to bring water with their gun belts. Absolutely ridiculous. Don't tell people to do things you can't do yourself.
Yeah, and listen, dude, I totally understand what you're saying, Ethan. But you remove the test, nepotism gets worse. You remove the test, nepotism. I totally understand. How is a captain with 5 arrests threatening my career because I don't have arrests? I agree with you. Listen, there was a guy who made it to deputy inspector. He was a zero. He was a zero cop. He was in a detail as a cop. He was in a plainclothes detail cop. And I believe he had some minimal amount of arrests. And he was a cop for like 7 years. He had like 5 arrests or 7 arrests. He was in the Eric Adams Club. He was like in the under 10 club. He was in the Eric Adams Club. So fucking he makes sergeant, and they make him the anti-crime sergeant right away. Right away he goes. He had no business ever wearing plain clothes ever. He probably needed to go back to academy and learn how to be a patrol cop first. But whatever. He was hooked up. He went through the process. He makes sergeant. He becomes a crime sergeant. My friend's on the crime team. He walks in. He goes, listen, I don't care what you guys do, but I want 20 arrests a month each. So my friend's like, you want 20 arrests for the team? 5 guys, possible, 20 arrests. You can make 20 arrests on a team. It's a lot. It's a lot, but you could do it depending on what precinct you work in, whatever it is. It's a lot. You figure at the time, anti-crime teams, the goals were about 2 arrests a month, 2 felony arrests a month, 2 pickup arrests a month, not 911 calls. You're going to go out and you're going to fish around. You're going to find arrests. You're going to find pickup arrests at the time. Right? And this guy tells him, no, I want 20 arrests a month each. And so they were uproar. They're like, what are you talking about? Like, it's impossible. Don't tell me nothing's impossible. You talking back to me? Crazy. So actually, they had to have the CO talk to this guy and tell him, no, it's 2 arrests a month. It's not 20. It's impossible for them to do 20. And that person went on to attain high rank in the NYPD. But yeah, it's terrible. But you know what? You have the ability to be a sergeant like that guy. You have the ability to get all the way up to captain. You should also have the ability to get up to DI, to full bird, to chief. They should make it all tests. I can see the 3-star positions being appointed. I can see it. It is what it is. They are no longer cops. They're politicians. You're a 3-star chief. You are a politician. You are no longer a cop in my eyes. You are a politician. You are beholden to the politicians. You are no longer a police officer in my eyes. You are clear as day a politician.
Well, I can tell you this, the overwhelming majority of the supervisors I worked with in my career, would tell you they weren't cops either. They'll tell you. You've heard it before. You've heard people make sergeant go, I'm not doing that. I'm not a cop anymore. You hear people make lieutenant go, I'm not doing that. I'm not a cop anymore. And I would say that's absolutely the most ridiculous thing. You should be a cop that leads other cops, and you happen to hold the rank of lieutenant. You happen to hold the rank of sergeant. But do arrests really matter anymore? Honestly, I mean, we have a police commissioner who's never done the job herself. So, we talk about leadership, holding standards. So, listen, it's important to make arrests. I don't necessarily agree with how many arrests. It's what kind of arrests. How'd you make them? You know what? John Shell would have put out my record that I made 56 arrests during my 5 years on the job. 6 months that I were at the academy. I was still out there as a Marine, so I wasn't always there. And I passed the job. I passed the sergeant test for 3 years on the job. But all my arrests were pickup arrests. There were robberies, there were burglaries. So John Shell, when you have an opportunity, you could actually look at the arrest because you didn't look at the arrest. And then you'll see they were good arrests. So what kind of arrests are they? I mean, if you have someone who made 100 holding one shoplifting collars, I mean, wow, it's 100 collars, but do they really put the effort into making those collars? So it's also the context of what they did. Ethan put up, we need competent cops to be competent supervisors. You're absolutely right. We do need competence. But I would think that if, it does show dedication. And to be a leader, you do not have to be an academic. So I think that picking up that book doesn't necessarily test your ability, your intelligence, not necessarily, but it does test your dedication. Are you willing to be committed to something for 6 months or 4 months or a year? Everyone has a different threshold in how they study. Are you willing to be dedicated to something to get to another step? So that shows character. But we're lacking the physical fitness part of it. I think physical fitness and mental stamina, they go together and they go hand to hand. So, Ethan, I'm curious on your thoughts about a physical fitness test. I mean, do you think it should just be completely done by appointment? And if so, are we leaving too much room for all-out nepotism? It would just be everyone's promoting rocket fuel. We already have a problem as it is. Could it be even more of a burden? Ethan, I see what you're saying. I'm curious to hear what your solutions are. So, but this is a great conversation.
Listen, first of all, that should be a physical fitness standard across the board, never just in leadership. That's always, there should be physical fitness standards in law enforcement. Rob Nappy said the best compliment I ever got was from a PBA delegate in a precinct. Someone was complaining about me and told them the man's a pain in the ass, but he has more arrests and medals and CCRBs than anyone. Yeah, I mean, that's, because you were a cop. And that's what it is, right? I always say the bosses that I look back the most were, honestly, they were pains in the asses. They were, but I learned a lot from them. They really were. And I was like, I don't fault the guy because he's telling me that's the job of a supervisor. You're telling me things that I don't want to do or I don't want to hear. That's your job, right? Is to say no, is to bring down, is to ensure that we keep the order. So you got to tell people things they don't want to hear. That's like basically your job. But that is a compliment. Shows you were a cop. Tom says $1.99. A lot of cops can't hack it and get promoted. Bottom line is this: you're on the job. You're not taking the test. Shame on you. Shame on you if you don't attain the highest rank you can attain. I'll never forget. I had like 5 years on. All my friends start getting promoted. Like guys that I came out with, I think Eric got promoted. All these guys started getting promoted. Boom, boom, boom. And I had the opportunity to take all the tests they did, and I didn't. I like doing anti-crime. I was having fun. I was running around. I was like, I like work. I like where I am. I'm into my schedule. Why do I want to get promoted? Move all over the place, bounce around. I don't know where I'm going to go. It's like rolling the dice. And then I go to the desk. I'm making an arrest that day, and I go to the desk, and I bring up, I was a lot of drugs in my precinct. So all the drugs were tied to all high crimes, which were robberies, burglaries, car break-ins, right? That's what it was. That's what it was in the 1, 2, 3, right? So with that, it was a lot of stuff with the pills and with heroin. So I go up to the desk with the drugs. The desk sergeant has zero clue how to do a drug voucher. Zero clue about a narco envelope. I have to literally walk him through the whole step. I'm annoyed that my sergeant isn't there. I'm like calling him. I'm like, why can't you just come here and sign my vouchers? Like, why do I have to deal with them? They don't understand it. So I walk him through the whole thing. He's reading the patrol guide. He's telling me things that aren't right. I'm like, it's not right. This is how you vouch in drugs. I vouched hundreds of pieces of drugs. This is how you do it, and whatever. We got into a whole thing, goes back and forth. I finally get my voucher signed after about 2 hours. Then I draw up the case. with the DA. What does the DA give you? They give you an affidavit, right? They give you your criminal complaint. What do you got to do? You got to verify everything that ADA drew up on that affidavit is accurate. What you said, this is at that time, place of occurrence. This is what happened, that happened. I verify the whole thing on the complaint. I bring it to the desk because you have to sign it and they have to witness that you signed it. What does the sergeant tell me? I'm not signing that. You think I passed the test that I'm going to go to court for you? I'm like, so now I'm like, I had it. I'm like, this doesn't say that you made it. I am the person here. I'm the person that's swearing to this. You're just verifying that I swore to it in front of you. That's all you're doing. That's all you're doing. I was like, you're not doing anything else. This is what you have to do. And I was like, I was furious. I was like, this is ridiculous. He has to go talk to his lieutenant. He has to talk to a million other sergeants. He verifies the thing finally. And I'm like, that day, I'm like, if that guy could be a sergeant, I could be a sergeant. Why am I sitting here and being held to people who don't know as much as me? Why am I being supervised by people who don't know as much as me? You know why? Because I was lazy and all I wanted to do was just continue to do what I do. So I had no one to blame but myself, the fact that I wasn't a sergeant. So I studied my ass off and I made sergeant. And you know what? I never regretted it for a second. And was being a sergeant, did it stink? Yeah, it stunk. I went to a precinct, I didn't know anybody. I hung out with other incompetent sergeants who had no idea, incompetent lieutenants, incompetent captains. And I was like, wow, I know more about this job than everybody. And then here I am thinking that I was beneath these people, right? I'm going to Brooklyn. I don't know anything. I'm like, oh, I worked in Staten Island. I'm not going to know anything about Brooklyn. I'm like, wow, these guys actually just been skating the last 12 years of their career and don't know anything. And so you have no one to blame but yourself. If you don't make sergeant, if you don't make lieutenant, if you don't go as high as you can go, if you're mad that your boss is an idiot, be mad at yourself. You're the idiot.
Ethan Hunt, he drove this conversation. I think it's good to continue, but he says sergeants have no clue how to do stuff their cops have to do. That's not on the exam. So I'll say this. There's plenty of intelligent people that can promote to sergeant, and a lot of good cops get promoted to sergeant and fail. And here's why. It goes back to what I've been saying. There's absolutely no transition from police officer to sergeant to lieutenant captain that's effective and actually focuses around leadership when it comes to the police department. So there's no effective leadership training. You're either born with leadership skills, you've had leadership training prior, or somehow you're so busy and you've actually had so many experiences that it becomes a byproduct. But actual leadership training, there is no training. And the echelon of the police department in the prior administration was micromanaging. This administration is not micromanaging. There's actually no leadership. It's completely inadequate. But the prior administration, they were inadequate also because it was completely micromanaged. And when you micromanage an administration, you destroy and deteriorate the ability to have critical thinkers. So your sergeants are not able to be critical thinkers and think outside the box. They're working in black and white, and they're working under fear. And when you have people in leadership positions that are working in fear, they cannot make proper decisions, and they cannot think outside the box. And that's the problem. There's a lot of good cops who get promoted, a lot of intelligent people, but it's the system of the job that shuts them down because of micromanagement, ineffective leadership, and absolutely zero leadership training. That's my take. That's my perspective. If anybody else wants to comment, please do. Tom, coffee and donuts, $1.99. That guy was a sergeant because he was never a cop. It's funny you say that, right? Tom, I think that a lot of people have this idea, you know what? I'm going to get promoted. And there are people. I'm going to get promoted because I can't hack it as a cop and I want to have less work. And you know what you find out? You get promoted and you have more work. Not necessarily more work where you actually have to physically take upon yourself. But now you have more accountability, more liability, and more responsibility. So you actually have more. If you're doing your job properly as a supervisor, if you're actually leading the way you're supposed to be, your job should be harder. So that's the truth. John, what are your thoughts on that? Do you agree? And if you're actually leading properly, I believe your job should be harder.
Job of a supervisor is way harder. If you're sitting around and you're on a detail and you're sitting in your car, or while all your guys are working, you're getting fat and hanging out with the community, you're going to eat, you're not a sergeant at all. You just attain the rank. I worked every rank that I got, I worked harder and harder and harder. And like I said, meal, I don't think I ever really took meal. Even while I was eating, I was working. And that's part of my problem now is like I just continuously have to work because it's all I've done for so many years. At such a high pace. Yeah, it's the job of a supervisor is it's a hard road, but the other thing of it, I never had to ask anybody what car I was taking. I never had to take crap from idiot sergeants. I never had to take crap from idiot lieutenants. The higher you go, the easier your job is. I mean, are you going to deal with morons up top? Yeah, you are, but it's less frequent. You're not dealing with it every day. Even when you deal with them, it's so much less frequent. It's a lot less frequent. And I think it's important, and I know that they dumb down the rank of sergeant. I know that they dumb down the rank of lieutenant, but it doesn't matter. You make more money. There's still a lot of things that you don't have to deal with. You alleviate the amount of people that you have to deal with. Even if you have even if you have an idiot XO or an idiot commanding officer, you're still not dealing with the idiot sergeants and the idiot lieutenants, So to me, it's like, it's a catch-22, and I'm going every day. I'm going for the more money, the more authority. With that comes more responsibility and more work, 100%. But you're making the path. Do you want to be led into a burning building that's about to collapse, or do you want to be the guy that's going to say, nope, we're standing out here? And that's what you have the ability to do as even at the first rank of supervision, which is a sergeant. And I don't think people understand. A lot of sergeants, I don't think they understand how much authority they actually do have. I think that was a real rude awakening, real learning experience for me. And, shout out, still a ton of great sergeants out there, a ton of great lieutenants. But I still think you should go as high as you could go.
You actually you solidified everything I've been saying, right? It's because it's a failed system. It's a failed system in the police department that cops want to get promoted. Most cops want to get promoted, because I had an incompetent supervisor and I don't want to be told what to do and mistreated by an incompetent supervisor because there's no leadership training and it's micromanaged and it causes them to be incompetent. What if there was proper system and proper leadership and leadership training, then cops would want to become supervisors because you would want to be that guy. I want to be that guy. The way he treats people, the way he leads, I want to be that guy. If we had competent leadership and proper leadership training, then we wouldn't have cops being mistreated. We wouldn't have cops being told what to do by incompetent supervisors. They would feel proud and feel comfortable that it would be a good working relationship, that you wouldn't be working with incompetent people. I used to say my pet peeve, and the worst thing I hated was when you had incompetent supervisors, because of an incompetent system, tell people to do something. And what's so important to be an effective leader is when you tell people to do things, they should know why they're doing it. People don't like to be left in the dark. Out of respect, tell them why, right? If you give them a task and you tell them why, sometimes okay, it's a daunting task, but I get it. There's a purpose, there's significance. But what happens when a lot of times you have incompetent supervisors, they don't tell people why. And you know why they don't tell them why? Because they don't know why themselves. So you know what their answer is? They disrespect their cops, particularly sergeants. And the cop may say, hey, why am I doing this? And they'll point to their the chevrons, because I said so. And the reason why they do that is because their lack of ability to express themselves is their incompetence, because they're not competent. So that's where I think Ethan's talking about it. Correct me if I'm wrong. So that's incompetent leadership because of an incompetent system.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, last thing before we get out of here. We're going on an hour, 50 minutes right now. We got about 400 people on here. Appreciate everybody for joining us this morning. This is yesterday, Thanksgiving Day parade, middle of the rain. You had Free Palestine protesters seek to interrupt the entire Thanksgiving Day parade. Mass arrests. I think the NYPD did a great job. They cleared it out in about 10 minutes. Here's footage from that right now. Same, not the same exact protesters, but protesters tried this last year. If you guys remember, they glued their hands to the street. Actually, ESU came, had to rip his hands off. Right, had to rip their hands off the concrete. I think protesters sustained injuries that they basically self-inflicted on themselves. But these people are seeking to interrupt a festivity, a parade. I think this endangers a lot of people on New York City streets. It endangers the parade goers. It causes a traffic problem. It causes the New York City Police Department to utilize resources that should be used for traffic safety, pedestrian safety, parade safety, counterterrorism, to have to now react and get taken away from their duties. Now, obviously, this is America. I believe in protesting, but this is an illegal protest. You can't just stop a parade because you want someone to hear what you got to say. So now, do I think that they should have the book thrown at them? No. Do I think these people need to go to jail for the rest of their life? No. But I do believe they should not be issued a desk appearance ticket. How do you feel about that, Eric? We see currently the state of policing, the state of criminal justice in New York State and in New York City. Basically, everything you do, you're going to get issued a desk appearance ticket. When you interfere with a parade like this costs thousands and thousands of dollars. You create a dangerous situation for millions of people. I'm sorry, like, you're interrupting the Thanksgiving Day parade, any parade, to protest a cause illegally. I don't think you should qualify for a desk appearance ticket. Would you agree with that?
So, absolutely, 100% right. You know what I think they should do? Send them a bill. So I was out in Sedona in Arizona. By the way, everybody should go out to Sedona. It's RV World, but it's beautiful Red Rock Mountains. So I went out there with my wife and kids, and we climbed a couple of mountains. And we learned from a tour guide there that, so it's very specific when you climb these mountains. You have to follow the path. You got to climb this mountain. It's difficult, but you got to follow the path. Now, if you don't follow the path and you don't follow directions, and you end up in a situation where they have to come get you, where they have to, get a helicopter and helivac you out of there, or they have to call emergency services to get you out of there because you didn't follow directions, then they send you a bill. No problem. They'll come. They'll save your life, but they'll also send you a bill because they saved your life. So that's what New York City should do. You want to glue your hands to the street and impede the entire city? You know what? The police department had to come out there. They should send you a bill. Most of these people probably can't pay it anyway. That's what they should do. Send them a bill, hold them accountable, and make them liable for being stupid. That's what I think they should do. Not a desk appearance ticket, but also send them a bill. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it depends what it is. I mean, I think the bill's going to be hard for them to enforce because you're going to have to find people guilty. It's going to be a lot different than it's gonna cost a lot of money to try to litigate that. And the knock on why they give these people DATs is they say that we have to give them DATs because it alleviates court fees and all this. I don't agree. I think by giving people DATs, you embolden them to continue and further enact in this behavior. I think a quick criminal justice reform, a quick way to reform a lot of people is have them spend a night in a holding cell where you can't move. And I think eventually you will start to see people will get a taste of the criminal justice system, say this isn't the type of life that I want, and they would move. I don't know that a bill is going to be a very hard thing to actually enforce, especially in a state like New York City. And depending on what it does, it might cost a lot of money to attempt to litigate that. But we'll see. And then to actually even try to retrieve that, especially from people. Let's face it; these people don't have jobs. They're not working. They don't even have the ability to pay for anything. The bologna sandwich that they would get in the night, they probably couldn't pay for. So, I don't know how you would go about enforcing that. So I don't love it. I think, it's part of our tax money. But I definitely think that pulling DATs would revoking DATs in certain scenarios is the path forward.
Yeah, well, listen, Joe Mangle, is it Joe Mangle who says it here? I think it's Joe Mangle. He's right. They should have to spend a few days in regulars. Put them a few days in jail, not a desk appearance ticket, and that may be enough wake-up call. But I think a bill should go along with it. And that's what I said. I know they're not going to be able to pay for it. But spending a couple of nights in jail and looking at a bill may be enough as a scare tactic for you not to do it again. And I have some people like, oh, but you're trying to scare people, put fear into them? Yes. You ever heard of the Scared Straight program? Yes. The police department should put a little bit of fear into people. Committing crime should put a little fear into you. The fear of consequence should be enough so that you don't commit a crime. I know there's a lot of people out there who want to say, oh, the police, law enforcement should not be fearful. The system should not be fearful. Absolutely wrong. There should be some fear. It shouldn't be fear of death or fear that you're going to be injured or mistreated, but there should be fear of consequence. That's how we are held accountable and held liable. Juju, shout out to you, brother.
Murder Inc. says, Lieutenant John, we all follow your order and covered up. No names, no badges. Let's see these protesters file CCRB now. I never said that, by the way, so I don't know who you are or what you're trying to say. I think that police officers need to be identified by name. I think they should be, I think with great power comes great responsibility. You shouldn't have a problem. Here's my name. Here's my badge number. This is it. Oh, you're under arrest because you broke these laws. Yeah, absolutely. And go to court. So I don't know who you are or what you're trying to insinuate here, but I've actually never said that one time, either as Eric. So, but yeah, I just think, again, I'm just for reasonable things. And I think everybody's innocent until proven guilty. Even when you're a moron, you go on the parade route and you stop the whole parade and they have to arrest you. I still believe you're innocent until proven guilty. But I think some things you need to pay a higher consequence for. I think a higher reasonable consequence, I think most people could agree with, is spending one night in the holding cell, which will prevent further action from that specific person on that day, particularly, and then prevent actions from someone probably in the future from a lot of those people who spend the night in a holding cell. I think that's something that needs to be reinstituted. Like I said, spending a night in a holding cell changed my life. I think it could change a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, Mark DeMack actually, here's an idea. I didn't even think of that. It's a great idea. He said, I'm with you, Eric. Attach the bill to passport or license or car registration. Can't renew or sell your house with a lien. You will get the message fast not to do it again. Absolutely. When you're held accountable, you're held liable, you're held responsible. I know you're shaking your head. People need to be held accountable. You need to be treated like an adult. You know what? If you commit this infraction, here's what's going to happen to you. You're shaking your head. I'd love to hear why.
Because I think it's completely authoritarian. I think it's completely ridiculous to say that you're accused of a crime. And not only are we accusing you of a crime that you're not found guilty for, we're also going to give you a bill with it. I think it completely goes against everything this country stands for. And again, how much money have I paid in taxes to New York City? Well over $1 million at this point in my life. And I've already paid. I'm not paying for any further services. I commit a crime. I'm accused of the crime. Arrest me. Find me guilty of the crime. But I'm not. You're handing me a bill on top of it too. So what am I getting? Am I guilty of a law and I have to pay my debt to society criminally and then also civilly? It's two different things. I don't agree.
I'm not saying that you're paying for the crime. You're paying for the fact that someone had to come save you. They had to provide a service. If you glued your hands to the floor and you couldn't get out of there by yourself, hey, maybe you're innocent of the crime of impeding traffic. Maybe you're found not guilty. That's right. Maybe you're found not guilty of inciting a riot. But the police department or the fire department had to come cut you out and rescue you. That's a service. So that's what I'm talking about. Paying the bill for the service. Use costs taxpayer money. That part I agree with.
I don't. You have medical insurance. If you have to go to the hospital, things like that. You should be billed for the services that you utilize, and we already are. So I don't see what else. I paid for the services for the police. I pay for the EMS and hospital services. I don't see why I should also get another bill on top of that. I already paid for it. I already, I don't see, like, now if I damage a piece of property, yeah, You want to hit me with a bill? Yeah. I damaged that store. I graffitied that store. I broke some city-owned property. Yeah, absolutely. You should get hit with that bill after you're found guilty of it. I agree. But I don't agree with it right off the bat. I think it's double dipping. It's ridiculous. And I know some locations do that, and I think it's wrong. I don't think it's American.
Well, that's the beauty of the Finest Unfiltered, right? We have great discussions. Opposition meets opportunity. All our opinions count, perspectives, opinions. That's what we should be doing. It's Black Friday. I think we nailed it here. Anything else you want to get into, or you want to start getting and wrap it up?
No. I think that's it. And then, but Mark the Mock says it right here. Doesn't the FDNY charge when they come for car accidents in the city? They don't. The FDNY doesn't charge you, but EMS will charge you if you utilize hospitalized services. So, but you're not getting charged for the FDNY response. You're not, and the same thing with the fire. You're not. But no, I mean, I think that's it. I mean, there's so much stuff, dude. We could go for hours. I mean, I don't even think we got into half of the news just from yesterday. So, yeah, let's save it for Monday. I'm good. You got anything else?
No. I just want to say happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Thank you so much for the kind words. People saying feel better and stuff. Thank you. I can't say I enjoy doing this podcast so much. And, sometimes I feel the police department did me a favor. I'm in retirement. I get the podcast, traveling, doing jiu-jitsu, travel the world, made new friends. It's opened the doors, meeting a lot of new people. John, shout out to you, brother. I love doing this together. Thank you so much, building this network with our friends, our listeners here. And I love the haters too. I appreciate the trolls. I appreciate the hate. If there's no hate, that means we're not growing. That means our voices don't count. So to the haters and the trolls, special happy Thanksgiving to you. It's Black Friday. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. We appreciate it. And we'll see you Monday. Shout out to you, brother.
Monday, live 8:05, baby.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime. But nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888 901 Blue. That's 888 901 Blue.